On today's video, I'm going to show you how to transform your camper van headliner from this to this. Just want to say thank you to A-Plan Modified Van Insurance for sponsoring this series of Combe Valley campers. We actually have the 2K T5 insured with A-Plan Modified Van Insurance because they will insure your vehicle from the moment you buy it until you convert it to a camper van and beyond. And if you would like a special rate for your next policy, mention Combe Valley Campers at the time you're asking for a quote and they will sort you out. We are recovering the headliner of our Project 2K T5, and you may have remembered from a previous video that this thing was absolutely grim. I mean, the whole cab that it came from and the van itself is a 200,000 mile van, and the headliner, I think in that previous video you can actually see where the original fabric just fell off, so I can't remove it today because the first thing I did was chuck that in the bin. But this is what we are left with. We've got a filthy, dirty headliner with the foam that's just peeling off, and that is what fails in most headliners in cars and vans. It's not the material that falls away, it's not the structure of the headliner, it's actually the bond between the foam and the fabric that breaks down over time, and then it just falls down and you could never stick it back up in the same way. So the best thing you can do is either buy new, which is quite costly, or you can replace it, which is what we're doing today. We're effectively going to be cleaning, restoring this headliner, and then laying a new fabric on, which is fairly similar to the original, but you can also carpet in a lining carpet, such as camper van lining carpet. You can use that, but in this video we're going to be using the fabric that is almost like a suede liner, but close to the original headliner fabric. So let's smash on with it. As we said then, this headliner is disgusting, so before we do anything on it, I'm actually going to just give it a quick vacuum, and on the back, I mean, look at that. This is definitely a 200,000 mile van. It's just grim. So I've got some of these big wet wipes. I've got the vacuum. I've got a brush. I think, so we're not working in such dirty conditions, let's go ahead and give this a scrub, a clean, and a vacuum. But that was disgusting. Luckily, the vacuum cleaner got most of it off, and then we went over it with a wet wipe. Yeah, there's a bit of staining along here, and what I might do once we've done the job completely is spray a bit of Febreze on it, because, well, it's not so bad. It's definitely just an old headliner. But yes, there's all sorts of things you can do to it. Before we flip this over and clean the top side and remove all that old foam, there's this frame here. Now that frame actually holds the courtesy light, the interior light in, and you could just cover over this. However, you need this little metal structure in there to be able to clip your light into. So what I'm going to do, very gently, using this little blade tool that I've got, I'm just going to gently bend over these tabs and remove it, and then once we've recovered it, we can pop it back in place, and we've still got that metal structure ready for the light to clip into, and it'll keep the new headliner fabric in place and give you a nice clean finish over the end. So I'm just going to pop that out and keep that to one side. The next job is the disgusting, long and tedious part, but through a little bit of experimentation, I've been able to find a method that's going to remove all of this disgusting foam from the headliner. Now, option one, which is a way to do it, I'm actually going to rub it off here with my fingers, and it actually takes the foam off and exposes the fibre board underneath, whatever sort of composite board it is, some sort of fiberglass. which is fine, but it's getting me really grubby, and if I was to do this over the whole lot, it would take some time. So what I found is, using the same tool that we used to remove that metal frame, is actually, and it's just like a blunt chisel really, I'm actually scraping the foam, which means it's going to be easier on my fingers, and it doesn't actually leave much residue. And what I can do is go over it with a bit of brake cleaner, maybe some blue roll, and what that's doing is the brake cleaner is helping the glue adhesive expand, and then it just releases from this board and you've got a nice clean surface. So I think what we're going to do is use this method, keep scraping, clean up with the brake clean, and I think we'll time lapse this bit because it's going to take a little bit of time. And then once it's all finished, we'll come back to you and we can start recovering this thing. We are about halfway through, and I think you'll agree I've made some progress and a mess. So what have we done? All of this foam is now removed from here, and I've used a variety of different methods. I've used the scraper, I've used some Scotch-Brite, I've used some brake clean, and I've actually used a vacuum, which turns out is a pretty effective way of removing the foam. So with the vacuum turned on, I can actually lift the foam up quite easily, and then I go in and clean up. I'm also using some offcuts of lining carpet, and I'm spraying the carpet itself and the board with the brake clean, and again that's just making the adhesive swell and then release from the board, and then I'm going over it, and you can see the bits and pieces just flicking off, and then it gets picked up by the carpet too. So it's actually a pretty good abrasive. And if I need to go harder, I'm using the Scotch-Brite as well. And I think, like I said to you right at the beginning, it's finding your best method. Take, obviously, some advice that you see here. Scraper gets that off quite well if I turn on the vacuum. Saves a bit of labour and cleans up at the same time. So yeah, I think I'll just continue, get the other half done. This took me about half hour, 40 minutes to get to this stage, if that. So yeah, we'll do the same again, and then we can start doing the final cleanup. Clean the bench down, put a covering over the bench I think as well, so it doesn't transfer onto the new fabric, and then get it lined. As you've seen, the headliner is now completely clean, free from all the foam, free from all the debris, and the last thing we actually did with it was made sure there was no lumps and bumps that are going to transfer through into the fabric of your choice. Now you can literally recover these with anything. If you found a really nice fabric down at your local upholstery store or Dunelm Mills or wherever it may be, you can literally cover this in anything. However, what you need to make sure is that the carpet or the material can flex and stretch around the lumps and bumps. Now we had 3 choices today, and I finished with a carpet lining like you'd carpet the inside of your van with. And the reason for that is because on a T5 or T6 headliner, the contours are just too great for this type of headliner scrim material. It creases. It creases really badly, and it just doesn't stretch. And I've tried all sorts today, and this is quite literally the 3rd take we've done. We've tried with the grey, we've tried with the darker grey, but in terms of a T5, T6 headliner, the contours, the dips, the angles are just too much for this type of fabric. So if you're going to go for a fabric, choose one that you know is going to stretch and form around the bends. That being said, these two can go out of the way. I have chosen the silver stretchy 4-way carpet you can buy from our web store, and we're going to be using the high temperature spray adhesive to stick it down with. And I really did want to use that headliner material, truth be told, and it is suitable for, say, a T4, where the undulations and the bends and curves in the headliner aren't as great as these, but because of this huge bulbous area in this headliner, it's just not going to work out. So carpet it is, and I'm fairly happy with the choice because the silver actually matches quite well with the A pillar trims and the B pillar trims that actually go against it once it's installed. And we will carpet line this in exactly the same way as we do all of the other panels. I'm literally going to, so I'll flip this up, for example. You want to do it bit at a time. You don't want to spray the whole headliner down. Pick up my glue that I dropped earlier. You don't want to spray the whole headliner down or the whole carpet down in one go. You literally want to do a strip. So say we've got a 6-inch strip here. I'm going to glue a 6-inch strip of the carpet, glue a 6-inch strip of the headliner, and then do that section one at a time. But I think less of the chat, let's get on with it. The lining is now complete. As we said before, not entirely the final material that I wanted on this. However, the material we did choose initially didn't really go to plan. Adapt and overcome, right? So we've gone with the grey lining carpet, and you can just see how much better of a job it does look. I know it's not for everybody, but with the large area in the centre, and then all the really big angles, dips and curves, it really is one of the only fabrics you can mount on this headliner without getting too many creases and it not looking factory. The last thing we need to do is to cut out the holes, and we're going to use a brand new blade and a Stanley knife. Be very, very careful with it. Probably don't need to tell you that. And the thing to notice, or the thing to note over carpeting a ply panel like you would do for the size of your van, is you don't need to wrap this fabric around the card itself, mainly because you've got to try and maintain the thickness of the fabric that it did once have with the original material on it. And that's because the headliner actually tucks into the rubbers round the tops of the door frames. If you were to wrap it around the front edge near the windscreen, it would sit proud of the windscreen, and you'd notice that headliner from the outside. And then at the back here, you need to maintain the original thickness, so it goes under the headliner strip that just finishes that off. And that's about it, really. So what I'm going to do now is use, like I say, my fresh blade. I'm going to cut around all of those holes and recesses that need to be removed, and then I'll show you the finished article. And there we have it. We have a completely refreshed headliner. Now, it's not exactly how I wanted it to go today. Put my hands up and admit that. I really did want to try and put that factory headlining style fabric on it. But like I said, trying to fit it around these contours is very, very difficult, especially when you have the creases and it's just not a fabric that will form round. I'm yet to find a fabric that will stretch around that mimics the factory style. So if you do know of a fabric that I could use, maybe I'll recover this one in the future and we can do another video on that. If you do know of a fabric, please let me know down in the comments. I'm always reading those. I'm sorry I may not be able to respond to all of them because we get so many, but I do certainly read them all. The silver stretch fabric carpet lining that we have used here will match the A-pillar trims and the B-pillar trims really, really nicely. And I can't wait to show you that in the van. However, for now, we've still got bits and pieces to clean on the cab of the 2K T5. So in the next video, you will see this in place and fully fitted and looking rather lovely. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have learnt something today, especially the actual removal of the old foam. So if you do have a really disgusting headliner, there's an option for you. You can recover it in a fabric of your choice. I'm Lee, this is Combe Valley Campers, and I'll see you on the next video.